Welcome to the Research Works podcast, live from the European Academy of Childhood Disability Conference 2024 in Bruges, Belgium. Join us for interviews with keynote speakers, world-renowned researchers and clinicians, and behind-the-scenes stories from one of the great paediatric conferences in the world.
So right now I have a wonderful guest, Dr Nofar Ben Itzhak. Did I do that well?
Marvelous.
Marvelous. Yes. Thank you. You're a neuropsychologist, a postdoctorate fellow at KU Leuven.
Yeah.
So wonderful to have a chat with you. In fact, I bumped into you on the train on the way over here. Somehow you knew it was me. So it was fantastic to be able to speak with you at this conference today. So you are presenting, we actually presented quite a number of times at this conference, but what we're specifically going to talk about is the mini symposium on the Game On rehabilitation called Game On. And it's all about evidence-based virtual rehab games for various childhood onset disabilities. So give me a bit of a rundown about what that entails. I know it's hard to summarize a big mini symposium in 60 seconds, but let's give it a go.
Okay, great. So thank you for having me. Hello for all those listeners. So basically, this symposium came about just by coincidence. So the people that I was working with, collaborating with, I had not officially met up until this point, except one of them. So Mari, she put together this symposium because we were all working on different rehabilitation. So they mostly work on physical rehabilitation, using, for example, powered wheelchairs and so on. Uh-huh. And so she knew that I'm also working on rehabilitation and the development process. And so she had used the guidelines that we developed and the structure we followed for our games. So then she contacted us all and she asked, can we put something together for the conference?
Oh, wonderful.
And when we all sat together, we realized we were all running into the same challenges, same excitements. And that just brought us all together. So the goal in the symposium was basically to explain what game-based rehabilitation is and the difference with games for fun versus games for rehabilitation. And then we also went through the iVision games, which are the games that I developed together with the team, of course, and their games, which is the ADA games. And we used these two examples as sort of examples for how to develop for children with different disabilities.
Yeah.
And also there was the engineer who was behind their development. So he also joined in. So we wanted to show this collaboration. And also there was one other physiotherapist who works in a company and he also presented those games. So
okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, we're talking a lot about games here and there's a lot of power in games. You know, it's not just going online and playing a game. There's a lot more to it. So what are some of the games that you are looking at and how do children with different presentations engage with them?
Okay.
Big question.
Yes,
I know.
Yes. So the children that we work with are very heterogeneous. So they have cerebral visual impairment, which means that they have difficulties processing visual information due to lesions in the brain. Mm-hmm. And because this insult happened earlier on in their development, then this means that all the children are very different. So some children have, let's say, pure CVI, but other children also have cerebral palsy. So it's quite a varied group of children.
Right.
And so
but still the main trend there, though, is that they've all got some form of vision impairment.
Yes. So we targeted the vision impairment because there were no games that existed, very limited games that existed that were developed in such a way that were individualized. So in our games, we make them individualized, which means that children can play at their level and at their needs. So they train to what they need to improve, basically.
Okay, so lots of questions there. I love this. So if we are talking about children with a CVI, how do we know what level? I mean, you just mentioned there in terms of level for a game. So, you know, there's children with CVI. Again, you might say CVI, but very heterogeneous, right? So how do you factor in that individual presentation with a game?
Yes. So it was actually a very exciting part of my PhD where we saw in the clinic what tools were used to assess cerebral visual impairment as part of their clinical intake. And so we took all those tests, for example, the TVPS, the BRE-VMI, and we worked together with the clinicians to see what these tests are actually measuring. And we defined a profile through all these sessions to then quantify the different skills of the child. So we have like a 6-dimension profile, and then we can see, for example, one child has difficulty in object recognition, another child maybe on visual spatial perception, and then using that information we input it into the game, and then the game sets the level based on their profile.
Wow. And so who can do these assessments? Tell me about how that works.
So for CVI, what's very important is the multidisciplinary assessment.
Beautiful.
So we do include a team of experts at the CVI clinic, and these include neuropsychologists, physiotherapists, speech and language therapists, neurologists.
It's a big team.
Yes, everyone.
Yeah.
Ophthalmologists. So we go through everything.
Wow.
And then based on that, we can get a clearer picture of the child.
So a question on that, and that's obviously gold standard, right? You have this multidisciplinary team to assess the level for a child that has CVI. Like no one person can do that alone. But would that form a bit of a barrier for people to then access the game? Like in terms of being able to access the game, we need to understand what level they're at. But if you can't understand what level they're at because you can't get that multidisciplinary team, does that mean they can't access the game, or is there another pathway?
Okay. So we have two versions of the game. We have this individualized version, which you need that testing to put you at the correct starting level.
Yes.
However, another element of the games is the in-game adaptivity, which means that when the child is playing their game, it changes the difficulty based on their progress and performance.
Right.
So if they're making many mistakes, it means the game is maybe too challenging.
Okay.
So the next level will automatically go lower.
Yeah.
What this means also is that children who we can make a profile for anyone, even if they don't have any tests, and then they can just start at the first level.
Okay.
So that's not a prerequisite necessarily. However, in our randomized controlled trial, we did compare these two versions of the game. So for example, without the visual profile, so all children start at level 1, and then the individualized version where children start at their level. So we do have the two versions indeed, because also maybe with the more severe cases, let's say the testing may be more challenging.
Yes.
And so we want to still provide them an opportunity.
That's wonderful.
And if I can just say one more thing,
of course.
is that the goal is that in future we will not need that large battery of tests.
I see.
So now we're still implementing a lot of machine learning into the games, and then we hope that in the future the game can learn itself what is the correct place to be.
No, that's wonderful. And this is where you can use technology to your advantage, right? You don't want to be... Statistical analysis obviously has its role to play, but that does take time, and you need to take the data out and analyze. But there is something about this dynamic way of working that you've already established the effectiveness, and now you need to be able to learn dynamically, because that's what happens in real life. Talk me through a little bit about those levels. How many levels did you say there were? Because in terms of CVI, maybe this would be great to give everyone a bit of a background about the levels of CVI. And when you spoke a bit there about object recognition, talk me through what will be like the lowest level and what will be the highest. Yeah.
So the approach here, maybe it's a bit different than in the States, because in the States I know that they really speak about levels.
Yeah.
Whereas here we look at like it's a clinical picture of a child, and so we have children who, let's say, have more of a CVI. However, they can still go to regular schools, and then they get support at the regular school to guide them. So maybe, for example, to place their information from the chalkboard onto the computer or something, so they help. But then you have children who can have, for example, severe cerebral palsy, and then they may have GMFCS 4 or 5, and they can have CVI as well. So we have that whole variety. And some children function more independently than others.
Yes.
And there's a wide array of comorbidities, autism, intellectual disability, and so forth. Yeah.
So with these games, is the intent not just for enjoyment and engagement? Is it that you believe that the data shows that by engaging in these games, you can improve their vision?
Yes. So indeed, the goal was to develop a form of serious games. So not just to have fun, although having fun is already nice, but we also wanted to be sure that we provide the children with additional benefits.
Yes.
And so what we aim to train, the key, the primary outcome, let's say, of what we aim to train by developing these games is visual perception.
Yes.
And so we recently, completed our clinical trial. So those results are still to come out, but it's looking positive, and we see that the games can be used to improve visual perception.
Wow. I mean, I like how you said that, because that just means we need to speak to you again when that comes out, doesn't it? We will keep in touch when it comes to that. But I think, is that something that is quite new? I think a lot of people originally would have thought that CVI, if you've got CVI, you've got CVI, there's nothing much you can do about it. But that tone is definitely shifting at this point, and that's the space that you're in, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. I think, it's very exciting to work on this, and also, to use technology, the advantage of the technology for children with CVI. And it appears that it is trainable. The deficits children are having, or the difficulties children are having, can be trained.
And what does that mean? Where can we get these kids to? Because that's a question that we never thought that we had the great opportunity to ask, you know, like what are the possibilities here?
Yeah. So I think what is important for us, and what we try to do also in our clinical trial, was to see that these improvements translate to their daily life. So we hope that they improve their visual perception, and that this will have some additional benefits. So for example, to their quality of life. So we hope that it is transferable. And I think that by improving the child's quality of life, maybe ability to do certain daily activities, that it will have a very widespread effect. And there's room for growth, especially when you target the younger children.
Yes.
They are malleable. And
how old can children start using these games?
So we started from the age of 3.
That's amazing. What does that game look like?
So the game is made up of 4 mini games, because we wanted to give variety for the children. And one game is focused more on playing cards. So it's a card matching game.
Okay.
And there are different drawings on the cards, and they need to match, for example, an elephant from the front view and an elephant from the back view. So there's different manipulations that these images have undergone. And we hope that it trains more of like the object recognition, for instance.
Sure.
And then the second game we developed is called Hurricane Chaos. And there a hurricane arrived, it shoved everything all over the place. And the goal of the child is to click on an audio instruction, and then he's told, or she's told, what to search for.
Okay, so there's audio as well with it to supplement.
Yes.
And does the graphics, are they what we would expect a lot of CVI type graphics would be? Are they high contrast? And does that progress over time? Is that what it looks like?
Yes. So in terms of CVI aspects, what was difficult was to find a balance between making it simple so that it's visually appropriate, but also to challenge them visually.
Yeah.
So for instance, if you want to train figure ground, so perceiving an object overlapping another one, that is inherently a part of CVI, and the clutter may be overstimulating, but you need to try to...
There has to be a challenge.
Yes, to train them.
Yeah.
So, so indeed, the starting levels are more simple. We also have 2 maze games. So in the maze games, they have to just find their way out. And in the simpler versions, they have maybe fewer exits.
Yes.
So it's like just a T-junction, and they have to... And so we build up from a very easy level to more difficult levels.
Okay.
And then it becomes more, let's say, busy or more challenging in the higher levels.
And how do they navigate their way through the game? I mean, I imagine... When you talk CVI, there is you tend to have a lot of children who might be GMFs 3, 4, and 5. Their max level will probably be along those lines too. How do they access it?
Yes, so the game can be played on a computer or also on an iPad, like a tablet, and they can use a mouse or they can tap. So it just requires being able to tap on the screen, and some form of head control, because you need to just be able to engage with the
Sure.
but it's our inclusion was until GMFCS 4, but in the end we had a child with GMFCS 5 who could still play, so that child was included in the study.
I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, GMS level 5, there's obviously the different percentiles. You're going to have the 5th percentile versus 90th percentile, right?
Yes.
And so same thing with all the GMS levels.
Yes.
But that's really interesting. So where do people get a hold of this? How do they access this? Because, you're going to get everyone really excited now.
Yes. So currently, as I mentioned earlier, we have just finished the clinical trial. So we are wrapping up all of that. And then I know that one of the goals is to then have it available, not to let it just sit back. However, of course, we need to be aware that research projects, when they end, we need to find a way to continue it.
Yeah.
So that is the primary goal now.
I guess it's that commercialization now, isn't it?
Yes.
Are you thinking that that's something you guys will do on your own, or would be something that you would outsource commercially to make that more widespread?
Yes. So right now, I think that's still a topic that we're discussing.
Yes.
Because, of course, you want to be able to provide it to everyone.
Yes.
And it's not, the goal is not to make money out of it.
Yes.
But what we were discussing with our colleagues in the session, in the discussion, was that then, of course, you still need the tech support, the somebody going to download the games.
That's right. There's a lot to
so
it.
there is still work that needs to keep going so that people can play the game well.
Well, it's great to know that there's something out there, that there will be evidence behind it, and that's the most important thing, right? And to know that CVI is changeable and that there's interactive ways that we can look at making improvements, because if you can improve visual perception skills, it means so much. It means so much to quality of life. So really exciting work, Nofar. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so fantastic. Well, we'll keep in touch, that's for sure, and make sure we get the results of your next study as soon as they come out. I can't wait for that. So to all of our listeners, I hope that was a great episode for you as well. Lots of things to look forward to there. But stay tuned. There's lots more episodes. We'll talk to you all again really soon. Thanks and bye.
Bye-bye.